I call it trumped up trickle down. Shut up.
There are two economic realities in America today. There's been a record 6 straight years of job growth, and new census numbers show incomes have increased at a record rate after years of stagnation.
Nothing like the moderator, Lion Lester Holt, making up some stories and making things sound great when they're really not. Let's see, let's start first with 2008. The Democrats had forced Fannie and Freddie to loan people money that should never have gotten it, which caused the housing bubble and all of these dregs when the rate popped up to not make payments on their home, which crashed the economy. Did George Bush have anything to do with that? Absolutely not. It was the Democrats. So let's start there. So now we've got the worst recession almost in history with the exception of the Depression. So if you take over something that's really run shittily and it's your turn to improve it, it's a lot easier than if you take something over that's run really well. So in this case, Barack takes over, 0% interest rates. He racks the national debt up from 10 trillion to 20 trillion, and that's at 0%. So just think about how much it's going to cost to service that debt when the rate is 5%, 7%, 10%, which are still historic lows in terms of interest rates. Let's also see, at 0% interest, homeownership is at a 51-year low. How does that happen? If I have 0% interest rate, so it's easy for people supposedly to get loans and it's cheap, but the homeownership rate's at 51-year low? I find that amazing. How about median incomes? Women, African Americans, down. There's unemployment rates in some inner cities that are 30 and 40%. Black president was supposed to solve all of that. How about the schools? Oh, that's right, no vouchers for you. You have to send your kids to the shitty school that's in your neighborhood that the teachers union runs. So we can go on and on about the economy, but we have a huge deficit. We have record low interest rates, so the payment on that deficit is going to go through the roof. We have home ownership rates at a record low. We have 38-year low in workforce participation rates, which is the real unemployment rate. 4% fewer people are even in the labor pool. So the unemployment rate's really not 5%, it's closer to 10%. I can go on and on, but you get it. And when you see how Lester starts here, there's no surprise on how he's going to finish.
First, we have to build an economy that works for everyone, not just those at the top. That means we need new jobs, good jobs, with rising incomes. I want us to invest in you. I want us to invest in your future. That means jobs in infrastructure, in advanced manufacturing, in innovation and technology, clean renewable energy, and small business, because most of the new jobs will come from small business.
Hillary Clinton never ran a company, never passed any type of legislation when she was a senator that grew anything. Hasn't really done anything other than cause a lot of war in the Middle East, which we'll talk about later. You want to invest in me by taxing me more and the government taking the money. And according to your list, let's see, technology, innovation, small business. How is the government going to help in any of those areas? Have you ever been to the DMV? Do you know what it's like to stand in an unemployment line or any of those places? Do you think that the bureaucracy that's been bought to healthcare and the expense that's been burdened on everyone is a way to grow the economy? Guess what, Hillary? Invest in me and invest in other people by letting us keep some of our money. If somebody is successful in this country, they are supposed to work until July with almost a 50% income tax rate between some of the states and the Fed. If you're not balancing things correctly with your accountant, why should somebody's income be taxed at that rate? You think you're going to grow things that way? I'm sorry, that's not the case. You're not going to grow small business from the government. You haven't done it for 8 years. Barack Obama hasn't grown anything. In fact, he's the first president in history to not preside over a single year of 3% economic growth. The first one. Can you imagine that? So let's go on and hear some more of your stories in fiction.
We also have to make the economy fairer. That starts with raising the national minimum wage and also guarantee, finally, equal pay for women's work. I also want to see more companies do profit sharing. If you help create the profits, you should be able to share in them, not just the executives at the top.
Oh, profit sharing? So you, the government, are going to tell me at my company that I have to pay this minimum wage, but then when I make money, I have to share the profit. So let's see, the employee has no risk to begin with because of no investment. They don't have to stay up at 3 in the morning and toil if they're going to be able to make their payroll. They're going to get paid a career wage for an entry-level job at $15 an hour now. I'm going to have to mark my prices up, so I'm going to sell less stuff. But when I do navigate all of those hurdles, now the government's going to tell me I have to share in the profits with my employees. I don't think that's going to work. That's not how business works. Business has grown in this country, and innovation has flourished because of one thing: the entrepreneur. The business owner needs to get the best employees, so he's going to pay the best employees the most money. And guess what? That encourages other employees to better themselves, to become better employees and get paid more. That's how it works, not Hillary Clinton taxing the hell out of me and then doling the money out, adding a layer of bureaucracy, and telling me how I'm going to pay my employees. I'm sorry, honey, that doesn't work for me.
And I want us to do more to support people who are struggling to balance family and work. I've heard from so many of you about the difficult choices you face and the stresses that you're under. So let's have paid family leave, earned sick days. Let's be sure we have affordable child care and debt-free college. How are we going to do it? We're going to do it by having the wealthy pay their fair share and close the corporate loopholes.
Oh, living is stressful, and the government's going to get involved in making my life less stressful? Free education? Wow, aren't we already doing that in high school right now? What's the graduation rate in St. Louis? What's the graduation rate in Chicago? How about that graduation rate in Detroit? How are we doing stacked up against other countries? Doesn't seem like such a good idea that the government gets involved in more education. Because the college system here isn't too bad. And guess what? If you don't have to put anything into something and it's free, there's no value to it. If I give you 20,000 ice cream cones and one melts, it really doesn't matter. And it's the same thing with college education. We'll have the same problems we have right now with high school and with grammar school. And why is that? Why does she want to do this? Because she's kissing the teachers' union's ass. Education in this country does not have a spending problem. It has a management problem. It has a union problem. That's the primary problem. The other thing is you want to make everyone's life less stressful. Paid family leave. Does the business owner get paid family leave? Oh, nope, I'm not opening the doors today. No, we're not going to hire people today. That doesn't work. You want to earn into a family leave deal? That's great. Then guess what? Afterwards, you have to stay for X period of time so that I haven't paid you and blocked somebody else from taking that job that could have been making more money and becoming more of an expert. And then you decide you come back and, oh, I don't want to do it anymore. That's a problem for me. So again, don't tell me how to run my business. And the government telling businesses how to run, that's how we got into this whole recessive mess to begin with. Because the government got involved in telling banks who to loan money to. That's a problem. And guess what, all you fancy pants people? There's no derivatives market unless there's loans to be bought. So stop with all of those excuses. The recession to start with in 2008 was a problem that the Democratic Party created by loaning money to losers that couldn't afford it and shouldn't have taken those loans. And what did those people do? Wash their hands of their loan, had a little bit of stress, and then they could go down the street and buy a more expensive house for less money after the bubble collapsed. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't work. And you're not going to tell me how to run my business and think that you're going to grow the economy. You've never signed the front of a check, Hillary. You've never run a business, and you've never hired an employee. Although the employees you did have at the State Department, you did a great job of leaving them to die in Libya. Fantastic job. Let's listen to you.
Secretary Clinton, thank you. Mr. Trump, the same question to you. It's about putting more money into the pockets of American workers. You have up to 2 minutes.
Donald, you should have given an easy answer here. Less taxes, less regulation. If you take a company in the United States and they have to abide by a whole slew of regulation to appease certain people, they are going to make a product that's way more expensive than the company in China, than the company in Brazil, than the company in India. And guess what? The jobs go elsewhere. That's a problem. If you want to create a level playing field by negotiating better trading deals so that everyone has to abide by the same environmental standards, that's a great idea, because guess what? There's not some bubble around the United States. We can stop polluting here 100%, but China, India, and everyone else still pollutes. Guess what? When we don't make it here, because we already are the cleanest producer of many things, and they make it there, there's more pollution. So all you do is take the device that's being made here, you make it somewhere else where they pollute the shit out of the environment. Great idea.
We also, though, need to have a tax system that rewards work and not just financial transactions. And the kind of plan that Donald has put forth would be trickle-down economics all over again. In fact, it would be the most extreme version, the biggest tax cuts for the top percent of the people in this country than we've ever had. I call it trumped up trickle-down, because that's exactly what it would be. That is not how we grow the economy.
I call it trumped up trickle-down. Shut up. Who listens to this crap? For 8 years, we've raised taxes and increased regulations, and what's happened? The economy's barely grown. The first president in history to not preside over a single year of 3% economic growth. You want fair taxes? A guy like Donald Trump's job for the last 40 years has been to minimize his taxes. He's supposed to do that for his company, his investor, and his employees. So why don't we come up with a flat tax as opposed to raising taxes like Barack's done over the last 8 years? The Democratic Party doesn't seem to do what they say. You want to grow the economy, you want to create jobs, you don't do it by taxing people that are pulling the wagon to help the people in the back of the wagon. If you dole money out, because we've doled $10 trillion out over the last 8 years and doubled the debt, and what's happened? Has that money grown the economy? It hasn't done anything. We've printed money and created a huge debt that when the rate goes up that we're going to have to pay off.